On the second anniversary of the Hamas terrorist attacks against Israel, I had the opportunity to speak with Gil Dickmann, a young Israeli fighting for the release of the remaining hostages, a personal mission for him as two of his cousins had been taken hostage. Good evening, Gil Dickmann.
Good evening.
How are you doing on this significant day? How are you personally holding up on the second anniversary of the Hamas attacks?
Well, I can't believe it's been 2 years. I can't believe it's 2 years since I saw my aunt Kinneret being murdered in Kibbutz Be'eri, and since Carmel herself was kidnapped. Carmel was able to survive 328 days in captivity, and she was murdered brutally when the IDF forces approached. But 48 hostages are still there, and it's unbelievable to think that we're commemorating the October the 7th for the second time, that it's been 2 years and they're still there. So it's not only that I'm sad on this day, I'm also angry. I'm mad. And most of the people in Israel feel the same way. They feel it's time that this war ends, that the hostages are here, and that it should have happened a long, long time ago.
You said you're angry and you're disbelieving. You and the other hostage families have been begging the Israeli government for months and years now to stop the offensive in Gaza, to strike a deal in order to save the remaining hostages. How do you see Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's handling of the situation?
Well, for a very long time, just like you said, we were trying to convince him to get this over with, to sign a deal, to get hostages back. He missed so many opportunities to get hostages back. He missed the opportunity to get my cousin Carmel back before she was murdered. And we were trying to explain this to Netanyahu and to the Israeli public until we figured out, we understood that he doesn't care about this. He doesn't care whether hostages live or die. He doesn't care whether innocent civilians on both sides of the border suffer. He doesn't care about it. The difference is that Donald Trump, the President of the United States, seems to care. He may care about the Nobel Peace Prize. He may care about his legacy as a president that promotes peace in the Middle East. It's the same for us. What matters is that he promotes this deal that will bring an end to this war. And I think he's the most powerful person on earth right now. So that might have an influence on Benjamin Netanyahu's managing of the situation. Even though Netanyahu himself does not want to end the war, he may not have a choice.
Are you saying, if I understand you correctly, that the Israeli government is doing too little to save your, you did too little for your cousins and the other hostages, and is partly to blame for your cousin's death?
Well, I think Hamas is to blame for my cousin's death. They're to blame for October 7th, and they're to blame for the death of all the hostages who were murdered in captivity. 42 hostages were kidnapped alive and killed or murdered in captivity in the hands of the terror organization and Hamas. But the Israeli government is responsible for our safety and security as Israelis and as people who live here. And so I see the Israeli government as responsible for the fact that it's 2 years now that opportunities have been missed and that hostages are still in captivity right now. Eviatar David is being starved as we speak, an Israeli hostage. Rambaslavsky, another Israeli hostage, is being starved right now as we speak. We saw the pictures, the whole world saw the pictures, the whole world must see these pictures. And Israel cannot, the Israeli government cannot just use these pictures as propaganda to say why we're fighting this war, because the only way to stop this is by ending this war in a deal that'll get the hostages back.
What about the Israeli government's goal to eliminate Hamas? Wouldn't that be an argument in all the victims' families' interests, so that there can never be an October 7 again?
Well, my family members were murdered by Hamas, and I don't think the people of Gaza actually deserve to be ruled by such a horrible terror organization. But I think the only way to topple Hamas, to get rid of Hamas, is by first getting the hostages back, ending this war, and then trying to figure out diplomatic ways in which Hamas can be toppled out of his place in Gaza, in the Gaza Strip. We've been trying to fight against Hamas and to get rid of him through war for a very long time. We know that it doesn't work. The only thing it does, it sacrifices the hostages. We're losing valuable human lives on both sides of the border. And Hamas, in a way, is even stronger amongst the Palestinians right now because they will fight till the end. It's not like they're going to just give up and say, okay, we're waving a white flag, go take all the hostages and we're getting out of here. The only way to replace Hamas is through a diplomatic solution. I think Donald Trump understands this, and that's why he put it on that 20-point plan that he put on the table. And I think this is the only way to do it. It's to put the interest of the hostages, the lives of the hostages, and the hostages who are no longer alive that can still be buried, to get them home as quickly as possible before it is too late. And then, when the hostages aren't there anymore, you can actually bring about a diplomatic solution that will get rid of Hamas.
How much hope do you put in President Trump's peace initiative?
Trump is our only hope. But Trump is a very powerful person, so it's a very powerful hope. And it's not like we're going to give up, and it's not like we're entirely optimistic or that we think, okay, that's done because Trump promised that he's going to make it happen. We can't keep our hopes up because we don't want to get disappointed, and the way we see it, it ain't over till it's over. But Trump is powerful. And Trump, he wrote The Art of the Deal. He knows how to make deals. He has Jared Kushner working on it, and Witkoff and many other people who know very much about making these kind of deals. We will have to keep pushing. That's what we do on this second anniversary. I'm driving from here to the ceremony, the second ceremony of the families of the victims from October 7th. We will call for a deal that will end the war and get the hostages back home. We will not stop fighting until all the hostages are home and this war is over. But I think we are now closer to the end than we ever were, because Trump is saying that he wants to end this war, and he even made Netanyahu say that. That's meaningful.
There seems to be quite a rift within Israel regarding this offensive in Gaza and the hostage situation. What have these 2 years done with your country, with Israel's society?
Well, I think many people in Israel are sad because of what happened on October 7th. They are angry both at Hamas, and we have very, very good reasons to be angry at Hamas, but both at the government, who was in charge of what happened on October 7th, and in charge of the fact that this is taking 2 years and Israel is more isolated than it was on October 7th. We lost so many valuable lives and the hostages are still there. So there are extremists in Israel who think we should go and build settlements in Gaza and have, a real estate bonanza. But I think it's about maybe 5% of the Israeli public. Most of the Israelis, right and left and center, will tell you that the most important thing is the hostages and that it's time to end this war. And so I think Netanyahu knows that. He's reading the polls. We just had a poll that was done on Likud voters, Netanyahu's own voters. And he saw that 80% of Likud voters support ending this war in Trump's plan. And Netanyahu understands it, but he also understands that when the war is over, he might be out of office. It might be the end for Netanyahu. So the end of the war means the end of Netanyahu and the end of Hamas. That's exactly why both Hamas and Netanyahu want this war to go on forever. That's exactly why most of the Israeli society wants to end this war and start rebuilding after these horrible 2 years that we've had.
You dedicated your life to the hostage cause at the moment. Where do you draw your strength from, your motivation to keep carrying on in your mission?
It's very hard to wake up every morning and think that there are still hostages there and that we haven't succeeded. And, to think about Carmel, that we were so close to getting her and we failed. But to know that the hostages are hearing us, that when we speak on public international media and in Israeli media, they actually hear this in Gaza. To know that the President of the United States, the most powerful person on earth, hears us and listens to what the Israeli public has to say, that makes what we do as families and what I do personally meaningful. And that means that we have influence on our reality. We are victims of this horrible, horrible thing, but we're not only victims. We are active actors and we can change reality. We saw that we managed to change reality and bring so many hostages in a deal. And so many of them are alive, and I'm meeting them every week in the hostages square. And I know that this is in many ways thanks to what the Israeli public has done in its public struggle to get the hostages back. When I think that the hostages are still there, I think about how much they need us, how they need us to be strong and to keep on fighting. This is how I keep strong, thinking about them and about the hostages that we can still save.
It's a very personal issue. Your two cousins, Carmel and Yarden, were kidnapped. Yarden was released, but Carmel was killed in captivity. After that, why did you continue to be an advocate for the others, the remaining hostages? Is that the reason why, this hope?
It starts with this hope that the hostages still need us. Also, I see Carmel and what happened to her, the fact that she was so close to being released, so just a few hours from being out of captivity and hugging her father Eshel and her brothers Or and Alon. And the fact that she was murdered in captivity has become sort of a warning sign for Israeli society. When the 6 hostages were murdered in the tunnel in Rafah, they became sort of a symbol for what will eventually happen if we don't get the hostages back in time. So when people in Israel look at me and they look at my family, they see not only people struggling for the release of the hostages that are there, but the warning sign for what will happen if we decide to leave them in Gaza and keep the war going. And so I believe we have a mission, and this is the mission, to stay active and to put this warning sign at all times so everybody knows how urgent it is to get the hostages back.
Gil Dickmann, thank you for your time so very much, and all the best to you and your family.
Thank you very much.
Du hast das Video bis zu Ende geschaut? Dann kannst du auch ein Abo dalassen.